The First Amendment is a key amendment, and it is in peril. The left opposes it, wants to end it. And in more extraordinary work by Judicial Watch, we just petitioned the Supreme Court on behalf of a school teacher who was fired for daring to post conservative social media posts months before she was hired. So I want you to think about a social media post you posted 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe even yesterday, and then going in, getting hired, no one complaining about it, and then someone reading it and saying, well, we don't like it, we're going to fire you. That's not the way teachers are supposed to be treated. Now, teachers sometimes can be fired for conduct while they're teachers, but this is extremely unusual to be fired for conduct before you were hired. And so we had sued over the firing for our client, Carrie McRae, who was a Massachusetts high school teacher up in Hanover. Hanover fired her. She was working, I think, at the high school there, or was about to. We lost at the lower court. The appellate court seemed to kind of poo-poo the issues of First Amendment issues and the extraordinary nature of what happened here. I mean, she was fired for stuff she had said long before she was hired, months before she was hired, and none of which was controversial. I mean, if you're a leftist, it might have been controversial. So it wasn't like she was out on there calling for violence or doing, something that would be, outside civilized society or civilized norms that might, in theory, cause concern in a school for security and other issues. Just straightforward conservative memes. She's fired for memes. Of course, the left wants to jail you for memes. California is evidently trying to ban you and censor memes and prosecute you for pushing them out if they don't like them. So I guess it's part of the piece here, right? All part of the same, what is it? All part of the piece? Is that the phrase? Critical race theory. She criticized it and got fired for it. She was hired as a Hanover high school teacher on August 31st, 2021, but was fired on September 29th, 2021, over several TikTok posts that were made months prior to her hiring at the school. McRae, who in May of 2021, had been elected to the school committee in Bern, up in Massachusetts, made the post in her personal capacity as a citizen and a candidate for office. Core First Amendment protected speech. As she told the newspaper, the Cape Cod Times, I got fired specifically for social media posts I made. That's a violation of free speech. Amen, sister. That is a violation of free speech, and that's why we're honored to represent her. So the school official met with McRae on September 24th to inform her that he was investigating the impact of 6 memes and 2 TikTok videos. I mean, to kind of describe it shows you the absurdity and outrageousness of what happened to her. Memes? Government investigating memes? This is the video that she was investigated. This is what she said on the video. I'm going to read it to you. Let me know if you think it's offensive. Should result in her being hired and then fired, or should result in her being fired after being hired to teach high school students. So pretty much the reason I ran for school board and the reason I'm taking on this responsibility is to ensure that students, at least in our town, are not being taught critical race theory. They're not being taught that the country was built on racism. So they're not being taught that they can choose whether or not they want to be a girl or a boy. It's one thing to include, it's one thing to be inclusive. And it's one thing to educate everybody about everything. It's completely another thing to push your agenda. And with me on the school board, that won't happen in our town. What's wrong with that? Frankly, it's more moderate than I would have been if I were running for office. So straightforward complaints about the woke agenda in schools made before she was hired. As we note in the brief that we filed with the appellate court, which again poo-pooed it, McRae spoke as a private citizen on a matter of public concern before she applied to, let alone was hired by Hanover Public Schools. Her speech was not at school because obviously it could not have been, nor was it about the school district or its administrators, teachers, parents, or students. It was not even about the town. So, you know, that point is that once you're hired as a school teacher, if you start talking about the school and government, you know, people who run the school and things like that, you're an employee, so you are subject to some scrutiny and restrictions on speech potentially. In fact, it was undisputed that McRae's speech falls squarely within the Supreme Court's category of private speech on matters of public concern. Her speech added to the public debate on immigration policy, racism, and gender identity. There are approximately 4 million public school teachers in the United States. That's a lot. I didn't realize it was that much. There are also tens of millions of persons who aspire to be public school teachers. The case concerns whether those individuals have the same free speech rights as every other private citizen. And that's why we asked the Supreme Court of the United States to take this case up. And it's not just Judicial Watch who's taken note of the odd way in which McRae has been targeted. The Wall Street Journal editorial page, one of the most influential voices in the United States, let alone the world, also raised questions about the court rulings against McRae's First Amendment speech. McRae says no federal, according to the Journal editorial page, McRae says no federal appellate court to her knowledge has ever held that government employers can punish employees for speech unrelated to their jobs and which occurred before they were on the payroll. The First Circuit's decision, the First Circuit Court of Appeals that we're appealing to the Supreme Court, delineates no statute limitation or limiting principle to employee speech that government employers can punish. A teacher could be fired for hanging a Make America Great Again flag at home. Political activity during college years could become grounds for dismissal. Workers who don't agree with the left's cultural mores may now have to self-censor in private life to avoid losing their jobs or to avoid being blacklisted from even applying for jobs. Donald Trump likes to say that his opponents aren't only coming after him, they're coming after you. Ms. McRae's cancellation is a case in point that could use Supreme Court review. Well, obviously we agree, and that's why we filed this, what is known as a cert petition with the Supreme Court of the United States on behalf of Ms. McRae. Let's cut to the chase. She was fired because she spoke out against woke critical race theory before she was hired as a teacher. That firing was a blatant violation of her First Amendment free speech rights, and the Supreme Court should step in and uphold the First Amendment. Now, this isn't the only First Amendment related activity and litigation we've pursued. We have much work in that area. We settled a case on behalf of a coach who was fired as a coach, Michael Flynn, for complaining about the way his kids were being taught, his grammar school kids. And we settled that complaint. He was also up there in Massachusetts. He was removed from his position as head football coach after he raised concerns about his daughter's 7th grade history class. Again, being changed to include woke theories on gender and race, etc. The superintendent finally settled and acknowledged the important and valid issues raised by Flynn and specific changes in school policies as a result of his lawsuit. And we also have ongoing a lawsuit for a tenured high school teacher, Gene Hedgepeth, out in Illinois, Palatine, Illinois, who was fired from that suburban Chicago school district where she worked for 20 years after posting comments on Facebook criticizing the riots, violence, and shootings in Chicago in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd. Hedgepeth made the post on her personal Facebook account while vacationing after the end of the school year. So essentially she was posting from the beach kind of mild comments on the insanity of 2020 and the rioting. She recommended that Tom Sowell, one of my favorite writers. If you're not reading Tom Sowell or have read material by him, look him up. Brilliant, brilliant commentator, economist. As he described him as a treasure and truth seeker. And talked about supporting Candace Owens and Larry Elder. So, you know, again, supporting conservative voices online, making straightforward comments about woke racist rioting, and you get fired as a high school teacher. So we've got that lawsuit that we're pursuing as well. So again, this is the book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril. Your First Amendment is the right and freedom that's in peril. Your First Amendment rights include your religious rights, your freedom of religion rights, your right of association, your right of speech, your right to petition the government. The First Amendment is a key amendment, and it is in peril. The left opposes it, wants to end it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.